As the president of Greater Baltimore Urban League, it is my distinct honor and privilege in thanking God that we serve all of Baltimore. Greater Baltimore Urban League is a nonpartisan, nonprofit agency who provides direct resources, services, support, and advocacy for the residents of Maryland, specifically seeking to serve those in poverty and marginalized communities. We are located in our historic Orchard Street Church on 512 Orchard Street. Please review our program for more information. Currently, we provide services to youth as well as adults. We provide services in the area of our Saturday Leadership Program, and we serve over 160 students from all areas: Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Howard County, Virginia, DC, and Delaware. And we prepare our youth for college and career readiness. We have a workforce development program, which is in their second year, where we serve students from Excel Academy. Last year, we graduated 15 of the 19 students. We also have an entrepreneurship program, the Raymond V. Haysburg Center. We provide services and support to individuals who are interested in beginning a business, provide one-on-one counseling, seminars, workshops, and assistance in receiving small business loans, leadership, as well. Okay, I'm sorry. She caught me off guard. My fault. Greater Baltimore Urban League hosted this mayoral forum to allow the community to hear firsthand how potential candidates plan to lead Baltimore as it relates to the 7 core focus areas, which is crime, education, equity and economic empowerment, healthcare, homelessness, transportation, and city growth. And thank you for showing out. Yesterday, I actually flew in at 1 a.m. from Hawaii so that I can make it back here, and I continue to ask, what's our number, what's our number? It went from 1,006 to 1,307. So thank you all for showing out. The questions that we are going to pose to the candidates came from our portal that we opened up for the community. All of the questions come from community residents. We thank you for your commitment in helping us thrive. I thank all the 14 candidates for agreeing to participate in this forum. We could not do this alone, and I would like to thank Dr. David Wilson, who opened up his home for us. We appreciate that. We could not have did this without Dr. Wilson. He is in his quarters up there, so thank you so much. Dr. Wilson has come to Morgan and has done some wonderful things, and I can't wait to see the medical program that will come here soon. So thank you so much, Dr. Wilson. Thank you. I'd like to thank Carl J. Murphy Fine Arts Center and team led by Ms. Monica McKinney-Lupton and Dwight Cook. Hack Baltimore. Hopefully you've had the chance to take a photo with some of the civic hackers outside. They will have a hackathon taking place for the city on May 8th to stop hacking Baltimore. Grebo. I started this idea for the community because I desire to have a platform for the community to ask questions of all of those interested in running for mayor. And I tasked it to our auxiliary programs. We have volunteer auxiliary programs, which is GBLA, our young professionals, as well as our guild. And they took over the task, and it grew like a wonderful AKA woman, an ivy vine. And I had to ask for some support and receive the services of Grebo, who has produced this, this platform today. I'm very grateful for Ms. Shalonda Stokes, who is our producer and our event planner. I thank her for the partnership and the attention to detail, for coming in and immediately taking over and allowing me to continue my vacation abroad and get this thing done. Of course, lastly, I'd like to thank my own team, who are all volunteers and power gods to me. Our guild members, Ms. Stacy, Stacia, Nikki, Mr. Bill, Edwin Green, GBLA, Stephanie, Ave, Kinsey, and Eric. And absolutely my assistant, Ms. Ozioma, who has been a blessing and support to me. Our directors, Ms. Charmaine, Estelle, and Brianna. Right now, I'd like to welcome our first moderator, who is Dr. Reverend Yeri. He is the senior pastor of Douglas Memorial Church of Baltimore and is the senior vice president and chief of global policy at the Rainbow Push Coalition, Incorporated. He also serves as chief executive officer of DMCC's two community development entities, Douglas Village and Camp Farthest Out. Dr. Yeri is also an adjunct professor in the College of Public Affairs at the University of Baltimore, teaching courses in race, American government, American politics, and community building strategies. Dr. Yeri's social justice work includes serving the National Board and National Action Network, past political action chair for the Maryland State Conference NAACP, and as co-founding principal of Community Churches for Community Development Incorporated, and as the founding principal of SALT, Strategic Advocacy and Legislative Think Tank, a faith-based public policy collaborative that works with regional and national empowerment strategies impacting disaffected communities. I am so grateful for Dr. Yeri for being one of the moderators, for our wonderful platform. Will you please come out, Dr. Yeri? I'm not used to this. I'd also like to bring out now our president of our Greater Baltimore Leadership Association, Ms. Charquise Meadows, who will.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. I'm here to introduce Dr. Alvin C. Hathaway Sr. He is the 10th pastor in the Union Baptist Church's 166-year history and the 4th longest-serving pastor. He was inducted into the prestigious Morehouse College of Preachers in 2012. Dr. Hathaway was given an audience with Pope Francis in 2015. He has earned 2 terminal degrees, a PhD in philosophy of religion from the North Carolina College of Theology, and a Doctor of Ministry degree from the United Theological Seminary. He has earned his master's in arts at Church Ministries and a certificate in urban ministry from St. Mary's Seminary and University. Dr. Hathaway is the president and CEO of Union Baptist Church School Incorporated. He is the author of a book by the title of Children's Mental Health, Partnering with the Faith Community, and another book providing mental health services to youth where they are, school and community. He has also authored several other books, and he has a long history of being an advocate of Baltimore. Please help me in welcoming Dr. Alvin C. Hathaway Sr.
Lastly, I would like to bring our president of Greater Baltimore Urban League's Guild, as she will present our moderator and host, Dr. Kay Wise Whitehead.
Good morning, Baltimore. All right. Dr. Carcinona K. Whitehead is an American educator, author, radio host, speaker, and documentary filmmaker who is known as the hashtag Black Mommy Activist. She is the Associate Professor of Communication and African American Studies at Loyola University, Maryland. In 2009, Whitehead received the Collegium Visionary Award from the College of Holy Cross, the Exceptional Merit in Media Award from the National Women's Political Caucus for her work in editing and compelling hashtag Black Girl Activism, Exploring the Ways We Come Through the Storm, a special issue of the Meridians, Feminine, Race, Transnationalism, Journal. The Baltimore Sun named her as one of Baltimore's 25 women to watch in 2019. 19. And Essence magazine included her on the 2019 Woke 100 list of Black women advocating for change. She is the host of the Today with Dr. K on the radio station WEAA, which received the 2019 Associated Press Award for Outstanding Talk Show, and the second place award for Outstanding Editorial and Commentary. Whitehead is also an opinionated editorial columnist for the Baltimore Afro-American. Please join me in welcoming Dr.
Good morning, Baltimore. Good morning. It is indeed an honor and a privilege to serve you in this way. There are 5 duties of a United States citizen. The first is to respect the rights of others and defend their beliefs. The second is to serve in a jury when you're called upon. The third is to defend this country when you're called upon. And the fourth and fifth are what we're dealing with today. The fourth one is to stay involved and engaged in the issues. And the fifth one is to participate in the democracy. That's what we're here to do today. This right here, Baltimore, this is us. This is how we roll. This is how we move. This is how we elect the person who's going to serve us. Now, we have 14 candidates today, but let's be clear. I checked the portal last night. There may be 37 people running to be mayor who want to lead you and who want to lead me. Let me tell you what we're looking for, because I know this is an emotional time. Let's be very clear. We want a mayor that has vision. We want a mayor that is fearless. We want a mayor that loves this city more than they love themselves. We need a mayor that has testicular fortitude, that knows when to say no and figures out when to say yes. We need a mayor who is unbought and unbossed. That's what we're looking for today. So if anyone wants to be our mayor, then they have to have a vision. They have to have a plan, and they have to do what I've been saying. Don't tell me what you're going to do. Show me what you've done. We have a couple of rules for today. We have given every candidate, they've randomly selected a number. They chose just a number out of a hat for where they're going to sit to keep everything fair. Each candidate will be asked every single question. They'll have a minute to answer. I want you to remember that this is a forum and not a debate. I need you to listen to what they're saying and hear what they mean. Give them a chance to share with you why they should be your next mayor. Once I introduce the candidates, when they come out, they'll start with their opening introductions, which are going to last a minute. I'm going to keep reminding you if I need to, it's a forum and not a debate, which means we need to listen to them. Coming up first, and I'm just going to read them in order. State Senator Dr. Mary Washington. T.J. Smith. Catalina Bird. Ricky Vaughn. Through Vignaraja, Yolanda Pulley, Mayor Jack Young, Dante Swinson, City Council President Brandon Scott, former Mayor Sheila Dixon, James Hugh Jones II, Shannon Wright, Carmichael Stokey Kennedy, and Dr. Frederick Ware Newsom. Each candidate has 1 minute to introduce themselves to you, starting with State Senator Dr. Mary Washington.
Good morning. My name is Senator Mary Washington, and I'm running to be your mayor because, like you, I love Baltimore and I love our people. But I'm frustrated with the false promises of old leadership and that things will change. I'm frustrated that we'll continue to utterly fail our families who've attended their child's funeral and explain a rising death toll. Our institutions fail our children by not investing in their education and the root causes of violence and economic despair. Some people are asking why I got into this race after I just got elected as senator, and this is why. I have a vision of Baltimore, what we can be, where the trash can be picked up and the cans can be turned up right, where other cities are looking to us about how to make things work right. But the thing is, year after year after year, our current leaders have not made it right. And it's time for new leadership and some bold vision and experience to implement it. I have that experience. I am that candidate. I've always stepped up to do the work, whether it's working with my family as the oldest child or whether it's overseeing ethics. Our city needs leadership that is not scared of the hard work. Vote for me. I'm Mary Washington for mayor.
Good morning, everybody. I'm TJ Smith. I'm running for mayor of Baltimore because I'm not a politician. It's been the politics that have seemed to have failed us over years. I'm tired of the death, the carnage that we're seeing in our city, and the fact that we haven't moved in a better direction for so many years. We have to turn the page on corruption. We have to turn the page on the violence, and we have to actually move our city in the direction that we want it to go. We can't say we want to get Baltimore back to where it once was. We have to make Baltimore better than it's ever been. We can actually do it. We can actually do it. We can do it together. I commend every single one of these people on the stage for stepping up to want to do the best for Baltimore. We have different philosophies and different ways of getting there, but I want to do it in a bold and precise way. I don't want to do it as a stepping stone to my next political thing. That's not what I want to do. I want to do it for each and every one of us. The trauma that we're dealing with in our communities is something that we have to deal with in order to make sure our next generation of youth doesn't experience what most of us have dealt with. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm not going to stand in these shoes. They had us standing back there for a while. My name is Catalina Bird, and first of all, I'm happy to be home. I spent 5 years here at WEAA, so for my first forum to be included, to be at a community that I helped to be a voice for so long, it's really a privilege. I ran in 2011 because I foresaw the ills of Baltimore and what was going to happen, and unfortunately, 10 years later, we're there. And there's not enough to express that the next mayor of Baltimore is going to write the chapter for the next 20 years of Baltimore. I'm running because politics, and especially Democratic politics, has kept us behind for too long, and the natives of this city are about to be erased from their own narrative. Baltimore has a long, stoic history in the very history of the country, and if we don't preserve what we have here for our children, they won't know how important this city is, why so many of us love it, why so many of us fight for it each and every day. And much like TJ and my friends with a number of the people here on this stage, we all have different ideas about how to get there, but we're here for one reason, and that's because we truly love Baltimore.
Your mic's not working.
I told you.
We will not let Mike stop us from moving forward. My name is Ricky Vaughn. I'm looking to be your next mayor of Baltimore. We have to have a different vision to take Baltimore to the next level. We cannot continue to recycle the same and expect different solutions and different answers in Baltimore. We have too much at stake. You cannot appreciate the top if you have never been at the bottom. I'm born and raised a product of Baltimore City, East Baltimore to be exact. I was that minimum wage worker at McDonald's to the now proud CEO and owner and operator of 120 restaurants. I was that homeless individual in Baltimore City, now to a homeowner. I was that high school dropout to MBA and PhD June of this year, and I am still going to fight for Baltimore regardless of the results in the elections on April 28th. Don't look at what folks are telling you they're going to do and what they're promising to do. Look at what they have done and what they're going to do and what they will continue to do regardless of April 28th. I hope to have your prayer, your support, and your vote. I'm Ricky Vaughn, and I'm soon to be your next mayor of Baltimore City. Mic check.
morning, everyone. My name is Thuru Vignaraj, and I'm running to be your next mayor because our city is in crisis, and I can do something about it. I'm the son of city school teachers. My mom taught at Poly and ended her career right here at Morgan State. My father was a high school teacher his whole career at Edmondson, at Douglas, at Southern, at Western. I went to public schools myself. From Edmondson Heights and Woodlawn High School, I went to Yale College and Harvard Law School. I was president of the Harvard Law Review, and then I returned here to serve. I was a law clerk on the United States Supreme Court. I was a federal prosecutor, city prosecutor, and deputy attorney general for the state of Maryland. I'm running for mayor because we're going to cut murders in half without mass incarceration, without zero tolerance, without mandatory minimums, without cash bail, but the just and right way. We're going to guarantee universal pre-K for every 3 and 4-year-old, guarantee free college for every graduate of a Baltimore City public high school without raising taxes, in fact, while cutting property taxes in half. I'm running for mayor because I believe that the best days of Baltimore are ahead. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Yolanda Pulley. I'm running to be your mayor because I believe in a different vision. I believe that the power belongs to the people. I'm not a politician, I'm a people's tician. I'd like to congratulate everyone for standing on the stage. Even though we share a vision, we also share compassion for our communities. We believe in Baltimore City, and we believe that we should move forward. If you believe that a politician should govern over top of us, I'm not your candidate. If you believe that the power belongs to the people, then I'm your candidate. So I'm Yolanda Pulley. I'm not a politician. I'm a revolutionary. I'm everything but a politician. I believe that we should do better because we know better. And when we grow better, Baltimore becomes better. Thank you.
Good morning. I am your mayor, Mayor Jack Young, born and raised in the city of Baltimore. Me and my wife, we have our 2 daughters who were in the public schools of Baltimore City. I believe that, and we strictly know why we need to make sure that our schools are fully funded. That's why I was the first elected leader to say I'm all in on the current commission recommendation for our children and for our schools. And we will get it done. I also created the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success because I know that it takes the family to bring strong families back together to reduce the crime in the city of Baltimore. And that agency is charged with connecting the dots, making sure that every agency that touches a family have the resources available for that family. I also invested heavily in our technology for our police department, so that they can be freed up to do the necessary community relation type policing and working with those anti-violent gangs to make sure that they understand that there's a better way. I am your mayor. I want to continue to be your mayor. I've proven that I have a steady hand to run in the city of Baltimore, and I want to continue to be your mayor. I need your vote.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dante Swinton. I'm the youngest candidate in this race, but I'm also the option for revolution in Baltimore. That revolution means eliminating crime by investing in our communities. That revolution means truly affordable housing. The revolution means thousands of jobs and living wages. The revolution means expanding our free transit system. That revolution means cleaner air for all of us to breathe. And that revolution means investing in our schools and not the school-to-prison pipeline. This April, we have an opportunity to rise up in the city and change it forever, and I hope by the end of this forum, you'll want to rise up with me. Thank you.
Good morning.
We just need to put the podium in the middle.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here and for caring so deeply about Baltimore. I am Brandon Scott. Since May, I served as your city council president, and now I'm asking for your vote to be your next mayor. I'm a lifelong Baltimorean and a son of Park Heights. My life has been shaped by the very issues that plague our city today. I've seen people be shot, lost friends to violence, attended underfunded schools with no heat and air, and lived in a neighborhood that was forgotten by my representatives unless it was Preakness. And That's why I fight each and every day for Baltimore. That's why I've been leading the way on police reform in Baltimore. That's why I fought to have rec centers open in Baltimore. That's why I fought to make sure that equity is the law of the land, so that no longer will race, your job, how much money you make, or what neighborhoods you live in determines whether your city government is going to support you. This election is not just about who the next mayor will be, but what kind of mayor. And we want a mayor that's going to put a new way forward to make sure that Baltimore is a better city for all and not for some, and rebuild city government top to bottom so that we can cure and end gun violence now. Thank you.
Testing, testing. Good morning. Thank you for coming out this morning. We work for you, the voters and the residents of Baltimore City. We have an amazing city, but things have become too normal. When I say normal, crime, murders, incidents that are happening in our community, quality of life, it's become the norm. There's no emergency for us to make changes. Now, I go all around the city and outside of the city, and people stop me and they say, Sheila, we want you back. We need you back. We saw crime go down when you were mayor. We saw a cleaner city. We saw services that are being provided to the citizens of Baltimore in a way that they haven't been done before. Now, let me tell you the formula for that. It's really about moving your ego. It's about working with a great team. It's about having vision and leadership. It's about understanding systems. When something is working, you build on it. That's why when we were able to reduce crime to the lowest that it had been in 30 years, the next administration should have built on that because they would have ultimately gotten the credit. The same thing with many of the other services that we provide in the city. So I'm stepping out in faith in God and running for mayor for Baltimore City. Thank you.
Good morning, Morgan State University. I'm James U. Jones II, and I'm one of the many candidates running for mayor here in Baltimore City. And I'm really actually running because I got tired. I grew tired of hearing mothers cry because they've lost their sons. I grew tired of seeing our children get a second-grade education in Baltimore City. I'm tired of seeing people in the streets not being able to get a job. I'm talking about felons. That's where a lot of our problems come from. I'm tired of the poverty in Baltimore City. So I'm a citizen just like you, and I decided to step up because Baltimore doesn't need another politician. Baltimore needs a leader that understands the people, a leader who will understand the problems and situations in Baltimore City. If I'm elected, I promise to at least spend 120 days in the streets of Baltimore because it's what the people need, it's what people want, and they need to have a voice in this as well. Sorry, I'm a little nervous, but I just want you to know that I want to do the job that should be done here in Baltimore City. I want to make sure that our children are educated the way they should be and receive a first-class education.
Good morning. My name is Shannon Wright. This city cannot wait another 4 years for leadership to turn the city around. We have issues and problems in the city, yes, but the fact that you all came out this morning means you have not given up on the city. You need leadership that understands where we are and where we need to be, not more sound bites and platitudes. You need a leader that understands the future is ahead of us, that we have to lift every citizen from our youth on up. That's the leadership we need, that has a heart for the people. A lot of what you've heard on the stage this morning is kind of similar. But some of the things that's been missing for a while in Baltimore is heart, spirit, and focus on putting you all first and making sure you have a seat at the table. Because none of us can lead unless we hear what you want. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Carl Michael Stokey Kennedy, and I'm running for mayor of Baltimore because I love my city. For the last 10 years, I've been in the community, on the ground, focusing and fighting for the undeserved, ignored, and forgotten youth of Baltimore City who have found a way to be a part of the 2,000 lives that have been lost over the last 6.5 years. I want to focus on moving Baltimore towards a 21st century city, investing in education, decreasing poverty, but more importantly, fighting for the people of Baltimore every single day. Unlike a lot of people, I'm not fighting against anyone, I'm fighting for Baltimore. And I look forward to having an opportunity to work for you on a continuous basis every single day, put my heart and my soul behind my words, and let you know that I'm going to be the mayor that's not only going to talk about it, but going to get the job done. I'm a product of the environment, and I'm also a product of change. And I look forward to representing Baltimore in my individual and my official capacity.
Amen. Good morning. My name is Dr. Frederick Ware Newsom. Can you hear me? All right. She said, pull the mic down, sir. Lord have mercy. Everybody talk about my shortness. Anyways, my name is, hey, amen. Come on, somebody. My name is Dr. Frederick Ware Newsom. I'm a candidate for mayor of Baltimore, which obviously you know that because I'm on stage. But my outline is this. All I know is success. All I know is how to make things great. I used to be a part of Stellar Awards, sitting on the advisory board, helping them make that show great. The Grammys wanted me to help them make their show great. I do the Newsom Awards, which is an amazing show that I do today. Now, my background is I have a doctorate degree in divinity, worked on my PhD in leadership and management, and another doctorate degree. All I know is success. To move Baltimore forward, too many people are trying to do it individually. Individually, you would never succeed. We would never succeed. Divided, we all fall. When we work together as one, I'm not about a whole lot of rhetoric. I'm not about a whole lot of talk. I'm results driven. If you're not bringing forth any results, then you're not driving us anywhere. Thank you. If you're not helping out the situation, then you're part of the problem. We have to work together as one. And to move Baltimore forward, we have to do it as a team, as a unit, as a system outline, and let's all help make Baltimore great. All right, thank you.
Just so we can keep, can you cut the main mic? There you go. I need to be able to hear the sound of my own voice here. So folks, what we're going to do just so we can keep things moving, when we have issues with the mic, the candidates know just to come straight up here so we can keep it moving. Let's talk about crime. You have met the candidates. Now we need to hear a little bit more about how we're going to solve this problem of 300 plus homicides for 5 years in a row. 30% increase in shootings, 20% increase in carjackings. What are you going to do to make some changes? Reverend Yeary is going to moderate this part of the conversation.
Heard the concerns about violent crime, gun violence in the city, but often the only strategy that is raised to address it is policing. So the question is this: what do you believe the root causes are for the violence in the city? Do you agree with the emphasis on policing? And if not, what plans do you have for a comprehensive crime reduction strategy for the city? T.J. Smith, you're first.
All right, good morning again. So I've said it over and over again that we cannot police our way out of the problems that we have. When we talk about the communities where we see the majority of the violence, East and West Baltimore, about 5 square miles in this city represent 1 of every 3 homicides. We also talk about equity. We talk about we need a more equitable approach. Well, these communities have been historically uninvested in, so we can't give it an equitable approach. We have to give it an over-equitable approach. We have to over-invest in these communities that have been the same communities that have suffered this violence year in and year out, day in and day out. This is what's really going to reduce the violence in our city. We do have to have a policing approach in these communities because right now, the criminal element is happy to commit crimes in those communities over and over and over again. We see it day in and day out, and it's unfair to the families who live in that community. So a collective response, and when you hear holistic and data-driven, what does that mean? We have to actually get underneath of it and specifically focus on these communities that have been historically uninvested in. That's where the root of a lot of our crime comes from.
TJ's correct in that we can't police our way out of the problem. One of the issues is recidivism and the amount of people who have committed violent crimes that return to our streets So it's my intention to work with the governor on some judicial reform so that we can strengthen what is not allowed to come back into our communities. It's not everybody that's violent. It's a small pool who have been through some trauma, that need some therapy, that need some assistance that police can't give and honestly politicians can't either. But we have University of Maryland School of Social Work here with some amazing clinicians and therapists who are prepared to hit the ground and want to work with community on that. In terms of a crime plan, if you follow me on Twitter, you know that I think it's facetious to ask us in January of 2020 what we're going to do in December of 2020 when we don't even know what has happened yet. What I will say is that my immediate focus will be on helping BPD with a clearance rate, because most of the people who are violent offenders are repeat violent offenders. And if we focus on clearing cases and putting people behind bars who have multiple offenses against them, we're going to see a difference immediately.
So, good morning, and great question. We have to look at crime in Baltimore on a different angle and different perspective, and approach it from a holistic standpoint. We talk a lot about crime in Baltimore, but we don't talk about the root cause. We don't talk about the mental illness and mental health, or lack of resources for mental illness and mental health in Baltimore. We don't talk about homelessness. We don't talk about economic development. We don't talk about education. We don't talk about rebuilding unity in the community with our police department. We talk a lot about putting more police officers on the streets, but quality is not better than quantity. We need to make sure officers that are already on the force and out there, that we give them the resources and tools and help them build a relationship with our communities. When I was growing up, we had Officer Friendly. The police officer knew us, our mama, our grandmama, our baby mama, our baby daddies, and everybody by name. But now when you see us, you only see us as a young, black, white, whomever, individual or young adult that can't succeed in Baltimore. We have to change that culture. One of the other big parts about the crime in Baltimore is changing the mindset and the heart. That goes back to the home. We need to make sure that we're out there helping our neighbors, making sure that we keep an eye on them, that we build our communities together, and we do it as one Baltimore and not two Baltimores.
In 1855, Frederick Douglass said, "It is easier to raise strong children than to repair broken men." It was as true back then as it is today. Too many of our children go to schools where there's no heat or air conditioning, where they can't drink water from the water fountains. That is certainly one part of the problem that we have to dedicate ourselves to focusing. But I want to tell you about two very specific things that we have pledged to do. Right now, 73% of the people that return to Baltimore City from prison are rearrested and reincarcerated within 3 years. It is a literal revolving door. I have pledged to have a diversion program where we use as a condition of probation getting an apprenticeship and getting a job. An engagement with the criminal justice system doesn't have to be the worst thing in the world. It could be an opportunity to develop skills and to get a job. The other thing that we have to do is understand that when people come back from prison, we suspend their driver's licenses and garnish 2/3 of their wages. I have pledged for folks that are in good conduct and have jobs for 6 months, we will forgive their debt and make sure they can rebuild a better life of redemption.
Crime is a traumatic experience when we ignore what people as human beings, what they need. When we ignore the food, water, and shelter, the basic needs and survivals that community needs. When we get out there and we address crime, we're not addressing mental illness. We're not addressing the young man that's standing on the corner. We need to ask them, what is it that we can do for you? How can we help you get off the corner? How can we get you housing? How can we get you mental health? How can we get you addiction programs? We need all these things incorporated back into our city. We need our city officials to understand that we are the people that's crying out for help. When a person cries out for help, they're saying something in volumes. So what I'm saying is, when we tackle the crime issue, we have to tackle all issues that's due to crime, which is the basic needs of survival. Put the tools back in a man's hands, and he shall work.
As a lifelong resident of the city of Baltimore who also have been affected by the level of violence, 3 of my nephews murdered. Just a couple of days ago, my cousin's son was murdered. So I feel you. I know it. I live it. My friends have died because of violence on the streets of Baltimore. But we can't do this alone. Everybody talk about disinvestment, which is true. That's why I created the Neighborhood Investment Fund, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, to move development in these distressed areas that haven't seen development in decades. And I'm committed to that. Also, I've invested more money into technology so that our police department can be freed to make sure that they're doing the critical community work that we need for our police department to do. Investment in people has been my whole career. That's why I created the Children and Youth Fund, so that organizations who normally don't get that philanthropic help can get that help and continue the grassroots efforts that they are doing on the ground. I'm your mayor. I know what it takes to reduce crime in the city of Baltimore. And I will continue to invest in job training programs as well. I know my time is up, but thank you.
All right, so we've spent $2 billion over the last 4 years on policing. Does it look like it's working? Okay, so obviously we need to do something different. I'm the only candidate that calls that out directly, and in my plan, I moved $230 million away from that budget and into communities. That's rebuilding those vacant homes. That's actually putting in small business grants. That's actually expanding mental health facilities. That's repairing streets. That's planting trees. That's building up a community that actually thrives so people don't have to be desperate enough to commit crime. Because if you don't give someone a job, if you don't give someone an education, you're not going to eliminate crime. You're just throwing money at it. And that's what we've been doing for the last several years. So what I want to do is make sure that we actually put money into these communities so that they thrive, so that we can actually eliminate crime that way instead of throwing everyone in jail and not actually doing anything but kicking the problem down the road. Thank you.
We all know that gun violence in Baltimore is a disease, it's a cancer. And what we have been trying to do for my entire life is treat one symptom of a cancer instead of curing the entire disease. When you think about violence in Baltimore, and remember, I was the first person to say that violence is a disease in Baltimore, and demand from now 2 mayors a comprehensive crime plan in Baltimore, because we will not police our way out of this problem. We have to address it from the top to the bottom. This is a traumatic incident for so many people, but we don't send trauma clinicians barreling down the streets like police officers to deal with the trauma that those families are safe in. That's what we will do. We do not attack vacant houses in Baltimore the way that we should. We do not. It's not just about waiting till these young men and young women come home and returning to Sandtown to train them up for a job. We have an Office of Employment Development that should be doing that while they're in prison. We will attack violence each and every day as the public health issue that it is, while also focusing on getting the guns off the street and focusing on the people that don't live in Baltimore that are bringing them in, and not just over-policing our communities. Thank you.
When I was mayor of Baltimore, we were in a recession. So you have to ask yourself, I didn't have a lot of money to work with. How was I able to reduce crime, not only murders, but also quality of life crimes in communities? It's because I took a holistic approach. First, we focused on the most violent offenders. I created the gun register, where we not only registered individuals who had illegal guns, but we went to their homes and we visited them, parole and probation, and all the public safety entities. But not only just visit them to make sure that they weren't doing anything, but we asked them, what are you doing? If you're not doing anything, what can we do to help you for a job or training? We also went into the prisons. It was called Family Strengthening, where we were working in the women and men prisons before coming out to help them to set a plan of action with them and their families so that they would not return. One of the things that I'm going to do day one when I go back is we have to bring back the trust of our public with our police department. We have to have permanent posts where those officers are in certain locations on a regular basis where citizens can get to know them. We're going to be releasing our crime plan this week, so you can go online and read the details of my plan since my time is up.
It's on.
The biggest problem is
Long time to go to the bathroom.
I'm going to say this as straight as I can. The crime rates in Baltimore have and will continue to rise in direct correlation with the inability of leadership to meet the mark. Period. We need leadership that understands, as many folks have said here today, if we don't get to the root, we can't fix it. If you have an ear infection and you take an aspirin, the pain might stop for a minute. But until you get to that root cause, you will not fix the problem. We need to address broken families. We need to address families that do not have the tools, the resources, and the support to be able to lift themselves up. We need to address the lack of jobs that give our folks the ability to support their families. Children are not born wanting to go carjack. Somewhere from their birth to about that 14 or 15 where we're starting to see it, we are failing. And the next mayor of Baltimore has to have a clear understanding of that and be able to make the hard decisions so that regardless of anything else, we do not lose our next generation of youth. Thank you.
Amen. Once again, my outline for crime is this. We need additional police officers on the police force. Reason being is all lives matter. What happened to that police officer the other day was senseless. I'm dealing with the real in the now. All that futuristic stuff, I'm not necessarily interested in right now. We need to protect our police officers as well as the citizens of this city. So in spite of what anybody may think, any good mayor, any good candidate is one that's going to preserve life. If that's not your outline, that's not your objective, then you shouldn't even be running. Every police officer on Baltimore City streets go out and risk their life every day. I told you I'm not into the rhetoric. I'm not into all the talk. That means nothing. It's useless. Every police officer that goes on Baltimore City streets, I got you, every day risk their life. I want additional police officers on the force not to fight crime, but to help deter crime. And then we do need economics. We need other vehicles in place to help move the city forward, but it got to take everybody as one.
It's the echo.
Good morning. Let's be honest. Integrity leadership, that starts at the top. If we want a police department that reflects our values, we need to have leadership that is not corrupt, that is not engaged in activities that draw us down. Second, we need to have an approach to public safety that is community-centered. As your mayor, the proposal that I'm putting forward is on my website, Mary Washington for Baltimore. Check it out. It has 4 pillars. We're inviting people to comment. We're having 6 meetings across Baltimore City. We have to center community first. So first, we need a police department that's transparent and accountable. Secondly, we need a police department that is trained to engage in equitable, effective, and constitutional policing. Third, we need to make sure that we are healing our communities and we are addressing trauma. And fourth, we must build a better Baltimore, a healthy Baltimore. But again, it starts at the top. Thank you.
So we need to connect these things together. We talked about crime, but we know there's more than that that's happening in our city. When we think about life expectancy rates, depending upon what zip code you're born in, there's a 20-year difference between Roland Park and, say, Berea, Upton, Druid Hill, Sandtown, Winchester. Let's talk about some health care issues, about how we're dealing with lead paint, how we're taking care of our children with lead poisoning. Reverend Hathaway, if you could moderate this part of the discussion.
Thank you. The budget, as you as CEO of a city that has a $3 billion budget, has 10,000 employees, has 600,000 customers, the budget decisions that you make reflect your morals. Right now, you have a budget where there is some $530 million devoted to the police department. You have about $125, $126 million devoted to the health department. We know that trauma is at the root cause. 13-year-old girl comes to me, member of my church. She's afraid to walk past Booker T because her stepfather, she still sees the silhouette of her stepfather on the ground. Trauma is at the root of what's happening, and it's happening young. You, as the mayor of Baltimore City, how would you adjust your budget to ensure that investments are made in trauma-informed care? Catalina Bird.
My team is
Stand up.
So I have been a victim of violence in Baltimore. I know the trauma firsthand because I had to tell my 4-year-old that he'd never see his father again. So when I come to this, I come to it as someone who has been helped by the therapy, having been affected by the trauma of the city. And it's with that intention that I am intentionally going to reallocate funds to make sure we get the help that we need.
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Good question. Part of Ricky Vaughn is, I'm just me. I'm going to be real. We don't even know what the hell the budget is, to be honest. I mean, we got money that's missing. We can't find it all of a sudden. We're not transparent. I mean, you know, we talk about all this, and all of it is sound bites that sound great. But you talk about allocating money and all of that other stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, we got to be transparent. We have to have leaders that are servant leaders, that want to serve you and not be served. We should have audits right now. You should know where every single dollar bill that come out of your paycheck is going in Baltimore City. Period. We don't need no email or no website saying this is where I'm doing it. We want to see the money. We want to see the books. That's why we got 2-year-olds being shot right now and entrepreneurs being killed in their business, because we don't know where the hell our money is right now. We should be mad as hell. What I would do is day one is make sure that the books are open so you can see where the money is going. 2, I agree with my sister. We got too much funds going to the police department right now and not enough funds going to our education, going to mental health, going to communities, and going to grassroots organizations. As a mayor, the first thing I would do is make sure part of my cabinet is having grassroots organizations in City Hall with us.
You know, on this point, Mr. Vaughn and I agree. There is literally no transparency in our budget. I was the first candidate who pledged that on day one, we will do a top-to-bottom audit of every city agency so we know where the money is being spent and where the money is being misspent. 2 years ago, we budgeted $12 million for police overtime. We spent $47 million. Last year, we budgeted $20 million for police overtime. We spent $50 million. That's $60 million over the budget that we set for overtime. And nobody is calling the police department or our city leaders out. But it's not just that we don't spend our money well, we're also not collecting our money. $2.3 million in water bills from the Ritz were uncollected. $2.1 million in taxes from Uber and Lyft went uncollected. The first thing we have to do is to get our ship in order. And once we've done that, we can prioritize as we should.
So, you know you got 2 pastors sitting right there.
I couldn't have said it no better than Ricky Vaughn. I totally agree with everything he said. Catalina Bird, I agree with what y'all said. The problem is the budget for the police department is too big. It needs to be more money put into our education system. It needs to be more money put into corporate citizenship. It needs to be more money put into neighborhoods. It needs to be more money invested back into the people. So my thing is that if you want to solve certain things, first of all, the police department and the city schools need to be put back under the mayor for accountability, for audit straight across the board. And we need an open book policy. I say, show me the money. Show us the money.
I have seen the money.
He said he see the money.
And since I've been mayor for the last 8 months, I have reduced the police overtime and redirecting that money to youth programs. I'm leveraging with our health institutions and our health department to make sure that where we need to have money for trauma, we're going to put it there. Since I've been mayor, I have looked at this budget and I have redirected funding for children and youth throughout the city of Baltimore. And with the current commission funding, it's going to address trauma by putting counselors into our schools, social workers into our schools. The Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success was created to make sure there was equity throughout the city of Baltimore with all the agencies that's charged with dealing with families. I'm committed. I know where the money is. And after I'm elected in 2020, you will see a budget that reflects the priorities of the people and the children of Baltimore City.
All right, so for every dollar we put on policing, we spend 1 cent on mental health and substance abuse in the city right now. So what I want to do is make sure we actually improve that by adding $12 million in addition to what we already spend on mental health. That means actually providing facilities in communities, actually having access to safe injection sites and the resources needed to make sure people can get off addiction. So on top of that, again, $500 million into the police budget. We can move $75 million of that over to the education budget, provide a mental health counselor in every single school in this city. But we also need to make sure that we are covering all of our bases, actually engaging communities, educating. I work or volunteer at the city's Rape Crisis Center, so I hear plenty of conversations about the need for protection from assault, the need for more education around the healthy relationships, and so I want to involve myself in that. But also, everyone's been talking about the need to do this, that, and the other with the budget. I want to make sure that you all have the opportunity to vote on that budget. So as mayor, I will create a participatory budgeting setup where you can actually vote every single year on where that money's going and actually talk to people and get that money moved around to where you think it should go.
Thank you. Pastor, the question was about trauma, correct? Thank you. First and foremost, let me be clear. Whoever wins on this stage, and it's going to be me, is going to have to operate through trauma-informed care. Because this Monday, the City Council is going to pass the Trauma-Informed Care Act, so we're going to do that regardless. But it's a lot deeper than just auditing. We need a forensic assessment of every agency, every practice, every desk, every phone, every car that the city has, so that we can responsibly reallocate our budget. First and foremost, we know we have to fully fund Curvin Commission, but we know our health department needs more money, not just for trauma, not just for mental health, also for lead paint, but also we need more violence interrupters in Baltimore. We know that we have to invest in recreation and parks more. All of the things that you can find in my comprehensive crime plan, Building Public Safety in Baltimore, or BrandonForBaltimore.com. That's what we will do. That's what we have been doing, and we'll continue to push that. And day one as mayor, trauma-informed care will be the way that we act under my administration. Thank you.
You know, one of the things that I think people don't realize on the stage in particular is that we have every program, every institution, every resource to address trauma and many other health issues as well as other issues that we face. There's a disconnect with our hospitals, who take up many mass areas of our city. There's a disconnect with what's going on with city government. I'm working currently with the Baltimore Child Abuse Center, and we are about to set up a program in West Baltimore to deal with trauma. They've been doing it for 15 years, and now they're branching out all over the city. We have to learn how to be able to connect these institutions with our schools and provide wraparound services, community schools, with all of our schools. But we not only work with the children, but the parents. Our school days need to stay longer. We also need to create entities within our churches and other faith institutions to provide that support as well. So we have the ingredients, but it's a disconnect because of the leadership and the vision that we don't have currently in the city.
I was keeping it.
Give it up. Give that mic up.
Thank you. As far as the budget, I agree with Ricky Vaughn. There hasn't been accountability in terms of spending in Baltimore City. But to answer your question, it's going to be difficult to answer that question not knowing what the budget will be at that time. But I do know that we need to put more money into our city. We need to reinvest in our city. Our city hasn't had any investments in a long time. I've seen Baltimore go from a place that was prosperous to where it is right now. And that's only because we have not, the government has not, our local government has not invested in this city. Gentrification and a whole bunch of other stuff is happening. So spending money is a big thing, but we just need to know what money that we'll have. And at that time, I think decisions can be made, a little better, knowing what the budget is. That's all.
So, can you all hear me? Okay. So, without a fiscal and performance audit, it's very difficult to give a specific number. But I can tell you this, we have to prioritize trauma and the ills that are facing everybody that lives in this city due to the failure of leadership to be able to get us in a place where the things that are happening no longer happen. So that has to be job one. I can't tell you a specific number, but I can tell you it has to be a priority to turn the city around. Secondly, I would like to say, when you're at home and every month you balance your checkbook, you can't spend more than you have. Well, you can if you've got plastic or credit. But as a rule, you try not to spend more than what you have. So that means for the numerous years that this city has failed to do an audit, they have been spending your money in the dark. So to those in leadership that have seen the money, when the rest of us have not, you must also know where it's gone.
My first priority is to focus on trauma, but what I like to do is get experts into the community so they can get wraparound service from school to the home, back to the community. So therefore, if an individual has a crisis and they run into a law enforcement officer, before the officer shoots or hurt the person, they'll know from everyone that this person has an issue or a situation. And more importantly, when it comes to find out where the money goes, I support my friends in terms of doing an audit, but once we do the audit and find out how the money was misappropriated, let's just get rid of the person or the people. That way we won't have to keep recycling these same things.
Hey, man, I think dealing with trauma, mental health issues, diseases, things of those nature, we would have to streamline the outline of how much money the police department is getting, make sure those resources are allocated properly. And then when you're dealing with trauma and our children and other individuals, if a murder is committed in certain parts of the city, you have a whole vigil, you have the whole community coming out to support that one cause. Not that murder is okay in any situation, but when murder is committed in another part of the city, you might get a few. My point is this: we have to make sure everything is allocated properly, that even the poorest communities in the area can get the appropriate resources needed to help out in situations, even have more social workers in school to help our young people deal with trauma, or one of their co-students have been killed or have been assaulted. They need to find ways to deal with that, and that's why we're going to streamline the budget and make sure all the money is allocated properly to make sure everybody's getting the services they needed. I believe in an equal Baltimore, or one Baltimore, and we can have one if we're divided in so many different directions.
It's a very important question. And it's centered on what I said last time. Our answers are here. It's about keeping the community centered, about making communities first. Look, we don't have a poor city. We have a city that's been poorly run. We have a city that has lost its way. You would not have 24 people running for office if they felt like we were going in the right direction. So we need change, change that you can dress. 32, I stand corrected. I appreciate it. But what I want to say is that we are a body, and when things are out of balance, that's when we're harmed. So we have to the health department has to be a cabinet level position. We have to make sure that the health department is leading trauma-informed care. We have to put Safe Streets back into the health department and address it as the public health concern that it is. We can do this together. We have the solutions. You need leadership that is honest, that's tough, and that's smart. And we don't have that right now.
Oh, yeah.
So Dr. K brought it up that it all ties together. My mom and my aunt are here, who've combined over 60-plus years in Baltimore City Public Schools teaching, and the kids are coming to school traumatized. We will find the money because the money exists. It's in seat cushions at City Hall. It's all over the place, and we saw it again. We're not even collecting the money we're supposed to collect that could go to fund these programs. One of my proposals that I put forth are called Trauma Go Teams. I watched a video not long ago of a man who was killed, and the fire department came out and was just washing the blood of that man down the street. And the community was simply left to pick up the pieces. No one was there to ask, are you okay? Are the kids in the community okay with what you just saw? That's not what we're dealing with. One of the things that we'll put forth are community town halls or budgetary town halls, because this is the community's budget. You all need to know where the money is, and we have to do forensic audits to find out exactly where all that money is. But we'll have Trauma Go Teams where we're going out in the community after these tragic events take place to ensure the health of our young people. Thank you.
13% of our fourth graders and 15% of our eighth graders are reading at the proficient level. So let me say it another way. In Baltimore City, 85% of our eighth graders are not reading on an eighth grade level. 86% of our fourth graders cannot read on a fourth grade level. If we're going to talk about crime and we're going to talk about health care, then we got to talk about the fact that we are miseducating these children. So let's talk about education. Reverend Year, if you can moderate this part of the conversation.
Let's talk about education for a moment. This year, there's a significant conversation going on in Annapolis about the Kerwin Commission report and how the various localities are going to fund their additional contribution to meet the requirements of the recommendations. For Baltimore City, that's about $330 million by 2030, or roughly $30 million a year. We just had a conversation about funding priorities and budgets. But when your revenue is limited and your obligations are going up, you have to make a decision. How will you fully fund Kerwin from the city government's obligations, and how will you make up the revenue deficit? Is it going to be by cuts, taxes, or a blend of the two? And if so, what do you cut and what do you keep? Ricky Vaughn, you're up first.
So thank you for the question. Mike, again? Rick. Oh, thanks. Thanks, big bro. So thanks for the question. So first, again, when you talk about budgeting, so I understand budgets, and that's what you need in a mayor, someone that understands budget. We have to make sure we prioritize, number one. When you look at our school system, we're talking about the same issues in 2020 that we were talking about in 1998, 2002, 2004. We still have schools. We're talking about putting money into schools and making sure our kids are educated, but we got kids sitting in cold-ass classrooms. I mean, we talked about this 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago. So it's hard for a child to get a good education when they are sitting in classrooms shivering from the cold and so on. So one, we got to make sure, again, transparent. We got to know where that money is going. It's good to talk about putting $330 million in the schools, but if we don't really have a plan as far as where that money is going to go, we can just say we're giving Baltimore City Public Schools $330 million. But out of that $3 million, how much of that is going towards resources for teachers? How much of that is going to books? We still today have schools that don't have books in it, but yet we expect our kids to be educated, period. And we still have teachers going out and buying chalk for chalkboards. Ridiculous. So it's good that we're going to have $330 million, but we need to know where every single dime is going to go to, and that's what my administration would do for Baltimore City. You want the mic? You got to go to him. You mic work.
Mic'd up. You guys can hear me, right? Pastor, I want to answer your question directly about how we're going to fund it, and then I want to talk about schools more broadly. To fund Kerwin, we're going to do three things. Number one, we're going to become the first city in America to legalize, regulate, and tax marijuana without federal or state approval. Number two, we're going to raise taxes on abandoned property, either develop that property or sell it to someone who will.
Abandoned, which you can't do.
And number three, we're going to get more money from the casinos. The casinos were sold to us on the premise that they would help education, and for 8 years, they didn't do that. But let's talk more broadly about the schools. The schools are a travesty right now. You can't drink water from the water fountain. It takes 2 hours to get there in the morning. The schools are closed in the winter because there's no heat. They're closed in the summer because there's no air conditioning. My parents taught in those schools for 3 generations of children. We know we can't fix it overnight. But my father used to say the best day to have planted a tree was 20 years ago. The next best day is today. Our schools should be a cathedral. They should be a source of inspiration, not a source of shame. They should be able to nourish the mind and inspire the soul. That's what we're going to do with public education.
When it comes to our Baltimore City schools, I'm passionate about it because not only did I attend Baltimore City schools, my children attended Baltimore City schools, and I also have a son that's still in Baltimore City schools. And the thing that hurts me the most is that they bring home a sheet of paper instead of a book to learn out of. My thing is that we don't have a money problem with Baltimore City school systems. We have a mismanagement problem. So my thing is we need to take the pyramid and flip it upside down and make it about the students first. Everything should come out the school budget as far as books, papers, uniforms, and everything else. And they should not have to figure out why do they ride in public transportation. It should already be provided for them. So my thing is I will take 46% of the budget from the police department and put it back into education. That's what we have to do.
As a person who have attended Baltimore City Public Schools, my 2 daughters attended Baltimore City public schools, as well as my friends and relatives who have children in the school. That's why I was the first one to say that I'm all in for supporting the Kerwin recommendation, and I am all in. In spite of the city not being able to tax its way into getting more money for our schools, I'm working really hard with our state legislators to figure out what they can do to help us to meet the Kerwin Commission. But by any means necessary, our children and our teachers are so very important. They deserve new schools. Under my administration, since I've been in office, we've opened up a total of about 46 new or renovated schools in the city of Baltimore. I still committed $25 million to the bridge to Kerwin, took $34 million to leverage $400 million for new school construction. I'm doing everything that I can within my power to make sure that our children, our teachers are first. And I will continue to invest in our youth.
All right, so before the next candidate speaks, Mr. Swinton, hold on one second. Just two kind of housekeeping things. We want to ask the candidates, we are working with the mics. When you stand up, just give it a second. They're switching between mics. It doesn't mean your mic is not working other than the mayor. Please stay on the handheld. For the rest of you, just give them one moment to catch up with you, and it's going to kick in. And second, remember, it's a forum, not a debate. We want to hear what the candidates have to say, because we do have questions and concerns. Mr. Swinton?
All right, so for every dollar we spend on policing, we spend about 54 cents on education. So to me, that sounds like we're focused more on dealing with arresting people than actually educating our communities. So I think we need to shift that a little bit. As I mentioned already, we need to reallocate at least $75 million out of the police budget for increased teacher pay, an increased number of teachers in these schools, increased resources so they actually have accurate books, that they have 21st century technology to educate our students, and to make sure that we actually put more money into the capital budget so we can have heat and have air in all of our schools, so that way they actually have a learning environment that's actually fruitful. So if we're not being more progressive about moving that money away from this idea of criminology into education, then we're not doing anything. So we've got to call that out, move that money around, as I said, and that's the way we're going to move our education in the 21st century. Thanks.
Sit on my lap.
Kerwin is the most important policy discussion in Baltimore and Maryland in my lifetime. I often say that my entire life, we've been investing in the failure of our young people instead of investing in their promise. And I wonder, what would Baltimore look like if we had fully funded our schools 10, 15, and 20 years ago? I didn't have air conditioning into a classroom until I was in 9th grade at Mayoral, and that was only because it was computer programming. We have to fully invest in our public schools if we're going to deal with the problems in Baltimore. We cannot. Before we utter the word increase taxes for citizens in Baltimore, we have to first make sure that every dollar is being spent appropriately, come up with a plan how we're going to responsibly reduce the police department's budget so that we can shift it over to education. Every single agency, everything will be analyzed to how we can do the first and most important thing, and that's to educate the future of Baltimore so that we are no longer having this conversation. But it's not just about the money, it's about the policy reform, making sure that the career education is there so that when they leave high school, they don't have to go to college. They are educated for the jobs that are available today.
Go ahead, Jack. Get it.
So to answer the question about the Kerwin report, we've had a lot of commissions over the last 20 years. Education is why we're in the situation that we're in today with the murders and the poverty and what we face in the city. And people have left the city. People think they leave because of taxes, but they leave because they want better schools for their kids. So we have an opportunity to change that. But we also have to look at what we currently have in our school system, and we have to have more accountability in our school system currently for what's going on. We also have to come in the 21st century. Our school days need to be longer. We cannot raise taxes in order to pay for current. We have to look at doing audits in all of our agencies. We need to do assessments, but we also have to put our state representatives like Senator Mary Washington, Delegate Nick Mosby, who's in the audience, and other representatives who represent us to make sure that they are lobbying for us to get that $300 million that we need in Baltimore City. And you're going to need a leader who can show them that they're going to work with our schools, as I've done in the past, to make sure it happens.
Right.
I'm not going to really comment because I agree with what Ms. Dixon just said. You know, right now, well, in 2018, I ran for governor, and everybody was talking about fully funding schools when they really didn't know what the budget was. And a lot of that money was coming from places that, well, actually, the governor was not spending the money as he should have appropriately for the education of the kids. But there was money coming in, so Baltimore City was not getting the money that they should have been getting. And right now, there's a debate going on, I believe, with the current commission, and they're trying to put that in place. So before we can talk about fully funding schools, we have to know that we have the money to do that.
So again, in terms of a budget question, we have to know where the money is to know how we can spend it. But I will say this. Education is one of the key factors in being able to turn the crime statistics around. We have to make sure that the children today have a hope, a fair hope of being able to get out of school, get into either a college or a trade, and be able to support a family. If we do not do that, we are continuing to fail them. So that has to be a priority. That's number one. And I'll share a brief story with you. Last year, I had the opportunity to meet with some teachers, and they showed me some of the pictures of the conditions in their buildings and their classrooms. The fact that the water fountains were closed off because of the lead, just a whole bunch of issues. And then at that point in time, there were some problems with the heating. It was last winter. And there was a meeting at the Board of Education. And as we drove to that meeting, we parked all the way at the back of the parking lot and walked through what could have been a luxury car showroom. Let that marinate for a minute. To walk into a building where we had to take off our hats and coats and sit down comfortably to talk about why our children are turning into ice pops in their buildings. Mismanagement is an understatement. Even the funds that come into the city seem to get stuck elsewhere, let's just say, and it sure isn't making it into the classroom, and we need to fix that.
In 2002, before the Kerwin, there was the Thornton Commission. And the Thornton Commission roughly cost the citizens of Baltimore $270 million. It flatlined due to the recession 2008-2009. The average kid receives $5,500. The average inmate receives $33,000 a year. Something is wrong with that number, but that's what we invest our money into. So what I like to do is find a way to create a new economy, invest in solarizing Baltimore, creating a lot of energy-efficient buildings, also artificial intelligence, but more importantly, invest in these HCBUs to get some educators an opportunity to teach our kids that who they relate to, and give them an opportunity to understand what education looks like for us.
Can you hear me? Oh, you hear me now. So, as far as the education, as far as bringing Baltimore City school children up to the standards of at least Baltimore City other school children, I would actually have to come in and streamline the process and where the money is being allocated right now. I told you I'm a no-nonsense person. I just go straight to the point. I want to know where the money is coming from, and then the money that's there or not there, I need to know where that money is. Before we start increasing taxes, before we start taxing everything that's walking on the planet, I need to know where all that money is right now, because you can't know where you're going in the future until you know what's happening right now, because you can take the same issues into the future that's happening right now. So I would make sure that's streamlined, and then as far as the current report, make sure that report is prioritized. What should come first? What should come second? What should come third? You can't do the whole report at one time. Thank you. You can't do the whole report at one time. That's just not good wisdom. You have to prioritize even that report to make sure you do the most valuable things first, and then things that may not be as valuable, you may want to save them for later on down the line. That creates great success, amazing success. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I am the education candidate. I spent 4 years on our Appropriations Committee, 4 years on Ways and Means Committee, and a year now as a state senator. And one of the reasons I am running for office is that I'm tired of Baltimore City funding its police department by 97% and only funding its education department by 18%. I am tired of making excuses about why we prioritize pay-to-play politics over investing in our education. It is difficult for us to go down there and make an argument when our own budget does not reflect our priorities. As mayor of this city, we will fully fund Kerwin, without a doubt. When I announced on November 20th, I said that we would appropriate $20 million above right away of what we're doing. In addition, we would do $33 million per year. We can do that. We have the priorities, we have the education, we can talk to our partners who are not paying taxes to say how they can be a part of the solution. We can invest in more nonprofit organizations, we can invest in the people that are building businesses in our community, but we can do it together. Businesses, nonprofits, citizens, and the state and the federal government. We will fully fund Kerwin.
I think one of the most single biggest forms of oppression in our city is the lack of equity in our educational system. We have young people that are graduating that aren't ready for the real world, and that should not be acceptable. We have to fully fund Kerwin, but we have to do it responsibly, and we have to focus on the outcomes and the accountability. We can't just back up the Brinks truck to the schools and we're not managing where that money is going. We have to make sure it's not stuck at North Avenue, but it's getting into the classrooms and getting to the teachers so they can have exactly what they need. Before we even think about taking money out of the pockets of any of you, a forensic audit must be done before any decisions are made as far as where that money is coming from, because we know money exists in this city and is being spent in this city in places that it shouldn't be, or being spent at a disproportionate rate. We have to bring in those nonprofits who aren't paying taxes in our city, and we have to make some better decisions with that. The money is all throughout this city. We have to pull it all together to make the decisions for our educational priorities, but we cannot reach into your pockets until we show our fiscal responsibility as city government, and that's what I'm going to do.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Partisan politics has killed most of the things in Baltimore, to include the public education system. Pastor Year, you mentioned Kerwin. In Annapolis right now, there are 2 bills about Kerwin. One of them presented by the governor, the other by the Democrats. They're almost identical. One of the things that we need to do to improve education is stop sending people to Annapolis that represent parties and not the people and the children. About 15 to 16 years ago, we went to site-based budgets, which meant that principals were able to allocate how their money was spent, but we didn't give them the technical assistance to understand how to operate that budget. The previous trajectory to being a principal had been your tenure as a teacher. So we put people in positions that didn't intentionally misallocate money. We just didn't provide them the services they needed to do so well. If we stop playing politics with our children, because until my brother went viral with the video from Matthew Henson, nobody cared that we didn't have heat in schools. We didn't have heat in schools when I was in it. We didn't have air in schools when I was in them. But it wasn't until Aaron Mabin went viral that all of a sudden it's everybody's issue and everybody's concerned for the kids. Well, I'm standing here at 39 years old, and I would have been helpful if y'all cared about me 30 years ago.
All right, so let's talk about the real world. Let me do just a temperature check. How you doing, Baltimore? All right. Hang in there with us. We got a couple more issues we want to put on the table. I just want to wake you up a little bit. I want to wake up our candidates a little bit, making sure that we're moving forward with getting these issues done. Not just telling us what you're going to do, showing us what you've done. Amen. So let's talk about economic development. The poverty rate in Baltimore is at extremely high at 23%. So even if we get our children to graduate, there ain't no jobs here for them. So I'm trying to figure out, where's the money going to come from? How do we economically develop a city that has this high crime rate? How do we get people to invest? So we're going to ask Reverend Uri and Reverend Hathaway to moderate this conversation. Let's wake up, Baltimore. Come on now. What are you going to do? What have you done? Give us some real solutions on the table. Reverend Uri?
Let me say it this way. The African American community, when you think of Thurgood Marshall, Juanita Jackson Mitchell, Karen Mitchell, you go down the list, Harvey Johnson, amazing leaders that have come out of West Baltimore. It is the historic district is in West Baltimore, one of the largest in the United States of America. But it's also the most segregated section of our city. It is also the most challenged when you think about health outcomes and educational outcomes, unemployment rates, substandard housing. In fact, the Housing Authority of Baltimore City is the largest owner of marginal housing in West Baltimore. So the question is, what policies and/or programs would you create to address this historic inequity? That's one. Second, would you commit to spend a week in public housing in West Baltimore?
What was the last question?
He looking like nope.
Through Victor Rogers.
What was the last question?
Your second question first, absolutely, I would commit to it. I think we have to be able to appreciate what is happening in the blighted parts of Baltimore, the neglected, disinvested parts of Baltimore. There is no better barometer of the health of a city than whether people are coming or leaving. And right now, people are leaving Baltimore in droves. This city, this year, will become the only one in America that is losing population and is smaller in 2020 than it was in 1920. It's not white flight, it's black flight. It's middle and upper middle class black families that are fleeing to the suburbs, and I can't blame them because right now we expect families to pay twice as much in property taxes for their children to have a higher chance of getting shot on the way to a school with no heat or air conditioning. So what I'm gonna do is to draw investment back. We're gonna cut property taxes in half over 10 years. We can't do it overnight, but we can responsibly do it over the course of 10 years. It's gonna create jobs. It's gonna spur the economy. It's gonna encourage families to invest in this city and grow their families. That's what I'm gonna do.
Well, this seemed to be my lane right here because I have lived in nothing but disenfranchised communities my whole life. From West Baltimore, Cherry Hill, Murder Mall, whatever you want to call it, that's Yolanda's lane. My thing is the money that comes in Baltimore City needs to stay in Baltimore City. Our economic development lacked itself because no one wants to talk about redlining. No one wants to talk about Baltimore 65% black, but we don't own no businesses. We have to open these things back up and make it the people's choice. Let them choose what comes into their neighborhood, and if a store comes into their neighborhood, they have to give it back. They have to give back to the neighborhood. Corporate citizenship.
Hello? Hello. Okay, I want to answer the second question first. Growing up in East Baltimore, Latrobe, Holmes, Somerset, and Lafayette, I have slept in those houses. So personally, I know what it's like to sleep in public housing. And when I was working with Mary Pat Clark, we spent a night in the apartments that was exploded right there at, I think it was Martin Luther King. I forgot the name of it. We stayed in there, in Murphy Homes. And I have made a commitment by creating the NIF, which is called the Neighborhood Investment Fund, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, to move development into neighborhoods that haven't seen development in decades. I'm committed to that. And any development that happens in these neighborhoods, I insist that they have to hire people who live in those neighborhoods and in those zip codes. I'm committed to making sure that economic development is equitable throughout the city of Baltimore. And I have done that in my short time as mayor of the city of Baltimore. Need your vote.
We can cut property taxes, that's one start, and I want to do that by 25% immediately. But we've got to do more than that. We actually have to commit to investing in these communities. And so every year I would invest $18 million into small businesses across this city. So Sandtown, Winchester, Park Heights, all of those communities. actually get locally owned businesses, and they have to hire locally. But not only that, if we actually invest in what's called a zero waste economy, we could create 4,000 jobs in this city. That means we're composting, we're recycling, we're getting stuff out of the alleys that people are worried about when they call 311 and don't get any answer. Like, it's actually investing in these communities, cleaning them up, hiring people to do that at living wages, not some $10 an hour, because that's not going to cut it. Because there are 76,000 households in this city right now that make only about $18,000 a year. So if you were working and living under that, you should be paying about $450 for it, a month or for rent for it to be affordable. That's not going to cut it. So we've got to be able to invest in these communities. And by actually investing in our city in a green way, we'll be able to build up the jobs that we need to alleviate poverty here once and for all.
Pastor, as you know, I grew up in Park Heights. So yes, I'll spend a week, whatever it has to do, to show people that this is what it's about for me. And I'm glad that everyone is now talking about equity, but I'm the person that's been leading the way on that. I passed Baltimore's equity assessment program so that beginning with this budget coming this June and July, everything the city government does has to be done through a lens of racial equity. So no longer will it be okay for Baltimore city government to ignore West Baltimore, to ignore East Baltimore. And when I'm mayor, we will operate everything through a lens of equity. So, Pastor, what we will do, and for everyone, what we will do, incentives to attract businesses, to help businesses grow, will be focused through a lens of equity into East Baltimore, into West Baltimore, into Cherry Hill. Our home ownership programs will be focused into East Baltimore and West Baltimore to Cherry Hill, because we will make Baltimore the most equitable city, because your mayor will guide himself through equity each and every day, so that we're growing in the very neighborhoods that have been forgotten for 50 and 60 years in Baltimore. Not forgotten, but on purposely left out. Those days are over under my leadership.
Growing up here, living in Baltimore, I stayed in McCullough Homes. I had friends who lived in McCullough Homes. One of the goals was, though, to break the cycle and get out of public housing. I would go there today. But let's take it a step further. When I created the 10-year homeless plan to end homelessness in 10 years, downtown on Fallsway, where it's a shelter now, wasn't supposed to be a shelter. It was supposed to be a housing resource center to bring people in, get them out, get them into housing, get them into mental health. Now it's a shelter and you got people living on the street. I stayed at shelters because I wanted people to know who are homeless, that I was committed to help them to find a roof over their head. Let's talk about West Baltimore. For the last 6 years, you know, I've been working on an Empowerment and Wellness Center, where we want to create opportunities for individuals in West Baltimore. If we look at Druid Heights, that project over in Druid Heights would not have happened if it wasn't for Mayor Dixon. How do we get rid of the vacant properties that we face here in the city? It's easy. Let's take the politics out. When the last former administration before Stephanie Rounds-Blake blocked a land bank that's now being successful in Chicago, in Cleveland, Detroit, where we would use that to leverage people to be able to give them homes. We don't have the money in the city, but we have property. Leverage that for the citizens to create opportunity.
I believe that economic development is very important, but there's something going on that we're missing here. Years ago, we talked about vacant houses throughout Baltimore City, but the one thing that's missing is that all of our hospitals are buying up all of this property. The hospitals are buying up all the properties. Johns Hopkins owns more property. I'm talking about boarded up houses, vacant houses. University of Maryland, Sinai owns half of Pimlico. So how can we develop something when we don't have control of it? We talk about doing something, and we'd like to fix the vacant houses. We'd like to do all of that, but we can't do it once again, and this is reality. The hospitals are buying up the property. So gentrification is something that we're facing. It's a reality, because it's not like people can go back and fix these houses and do things. Like I said, this property is owned by our hospitals, and we need to do something about that.
There are a lot of problems. But let's start with one very important fact to keep in mind for everybody. In addition to the problems that we're all here to talk about and that we see, we have one other major problem. Can you all hear me with, okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. It hurts my spirit, the fact and the statistic you gave out about public housing and how large the budget is and how substandard the housing is. Unfortunately, Baltimore is not unique in that situation. And I think we have a bigger failure when our leadership does not realize and recognize that when you talk about redlining and you talk about the issues that are here in this city, as Nito Brown said, this problem is bigger than Baltimore. It's not just here. And until we get out of our box and look beyond here to recognize how behind the 8 ball we are, it will be very difficult for us to fix the problems that we see. When I decided to run for mayor, I knew that I needed to get answers that I didn't have. And instead of creating smoke screens and sound bites, that some of which legally can't be done, I wanted to find out the facts. There are a lot of problems in this city, but there are a lot of programs already on the books with funding to be able to fix some of the issues and problems. But unfortunately, leadership that looks like us has not always made it a priority to help us.
I'm gonna address this woman right here as soon as we leave here.
I understand that economic development is a key component to growing the city. And I hate to be biased, but I think we need to find more ways to increase those same conversations when it comes to urban development. And I think once we do that, everybody have a fair shake and a seat at the table. More importantly, we need to get tax incentives for these small businesses and get them an opportunity to grow and be prosperous as well. But more importantly, we got to create entrepreneur programs and give these groups of kids, like the Squeezy kids, the opportunity so we can invest in them, start talking about them, start investing with them, and hopefully that economy will grow as well. But more importantly, Baltimore is a beautiful city. And I think we have been ignored because of lack of attention and leadership for people giving people who they owe things to, not people who they owe things for. So I'm committed to making sure that the people will always come first. And as we build Baltimore together, and I think there's some great people on this stage who have done some wonderful things for the city, but we got to change the culture. And if we don't change the culture, we're going to be back here in 4 years talking about the same exact thing.
Amen. I think economic development plays major roles and parts in developing our city, developing our citizens, developing the communities. There's communities I consider in Baltimore as the haves and the have-nots. There's some people that have and there's some people that don't have. Well, those communities that do not have, I want to develop, outline, and put into place where I want to establish 200 to 300 small businesses per year that can actually get money from the city government to help build up their business, their establishment, whatever they're trying to do to bring up that economic divide that's happening in Baltimore right now. And we can do that if everybody follow through with it and put their resources together to make this happen. I would like to allocate at least $10 million per year towards this project to see some of these communities develop, because we can create that economic divide and shorten that gap and make sure everybody have in the city. Thank you, I appreciate it. I'm so apologetic. But it's something that we have to do as a team. Like I said earlier, I believe in a system approach, systems perspective. Trying to do things solo will never work. That's what people are trying now. This person want to do their thing, that would never work. That philosophy never stands. You have to work together as one, as a unit, to make sure we accomplish the goals of Baltimore. Thank you.
We have to talk about not just economic development, but economic justice. Talk about things that we've already done. 3 years ago, I was getting lots of emails and calls about our unpaid water bills, high bills, incorrect water bills, and I made sure that no one lost their home on unpaid water bills ever again. That will not happen. That is something I did. We had created programs that provided after-school programs for young people to get jobs in environmental education jobs. 200 young people today, every summer, have jobs with the state because of work that I did. We have to make sure that we're looking for not just opportunities to invest downtown, but we can do this. When we look at bonding and we look at TIFs, we use the proceeds from those TIFs to invest in communities that are not being invested in, not to invest in communities that are already invested in. Those are decisions that we can do. Thank you.
Start under him.
So as all of this stuff links together, it's the education link as well. Of course, it would go into public housing in West Baltimore, East Baltimore. But the education link, Dr. Santelides has to be a partner with the mayor. Dr. Santelides actually should be there when we're doing these groundbreakings of big corporations and figuring out exactly how our kids are going to be going into those jobs and not people from out of the state that are coming to fill those jobs. We need our kids to be able to fill those jobs. As Senator Washington just mentioned, the same thing, the TIFs have to be equally distributed downtown and uptown. We can do that, and we have to be very specific about it, and we need a non-politician to be able to make non-political decisions because you're not worried about who's going to be funding your next re-election campaign because you're able to make those decisions for the greater good, and that's Baltimore. Again, we have to tie in the education and workforce to restore dignity in our communities. They've been ignored for generations and generations, and we have to invest in small businesses. Baltimore is a majority black city. We have to create more majority black millionaires in our city.
Perfect segue. If you go to my website, www.birdforbaltimore.com, the very first thing you see is the West Baltimore Redevelopment Act. It's a plan that came born out of, and I'm happy Sharon Pender's here today because I learned a lot from her when the Ehrlich administration created the MBE office for the state of Maryland. But it's a 15-year moratorium on development that is not an MBE certified contractor. Because as TJ said, we are a black city, but we've never had leadership that was intentional about creating generational legacy black wealth. To your other question, of course, I'll come to 2 weeks, because the people in public housing, much to something you were talking about on Facebook earlier this week, don't know that they can transition from public housing into home ownership. And the law's been on the books since before I've been born, but we can educate them together and empower them together as we do in the rest of the work we've done in community. Last but not least, I would tax Hopkins to pay for it. I would tax Hopkins to reduce your property taxes. I'm not scared to say it out loud because there's no place else in the country that's going to give them a half a city for free.
So my wife texted me and said, "You're too passionate, tone it down some." So I wrote it down this time. So in order to get to it, you must go through it. So to answer the second question, absolutely. Yes, I would stay in public housing. More than a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, that's how we fix this. As a business owner, I will say, we got a lot of small businesses in Baltimore, but everyone that look like you and I are not for you and I. We have businesses. If you own a business, and you're hearing it from Ricky Vaughn, if you own a business in our city and you're not giving back to the community that you so-called serve, then you should not be in that community. That's number one. What do I mean by that? If you are I love Chinese food, but I don't eat at Chinese restaurants. Why? When you walk in there, do you see the person sitting next to you and I that's in that Chinese food restaurant serving us? Absolutely not. But yet we continue to go there and we give our money to them. They riding around in Mercedes-Benz and Lexus and paying for their kids' college off of us. So every small business that's in Baltimore don't necessarily have to be in Baltimore. I would also add, what are we doing? We've hired squeegee kids 4 or 5 years ago. Not only them, their parents also. And we help them with education, getting their GEDs and back in college. That's what a business owner needs to do in Baltimore City, is making sure we keep the community and the wealth within the community that we so-called love and serve.
So, folks, we have one more thing that we're going to do. The last thing we're going to do after I say my thank yous is we're going to give each candidate one more opportunity. Now, I do want to say thank you to the 14 candidates that are on the stage. I want to also recognize that there are about 34 candidates running. So we have to understand that even though they're not up here and they were not registered at the time we put this together, their voices still do matter. So I want to recognize them if they are in the room. I want to thank the Greater Baltimore Urban League. Tiffany Majors and her team did a yeoman's job putting this together. So thank you, Tiffany. I want to thank Morgan State University for giving us the fine facilities to be able to host this event. So we definitely love having it at an HBCU. I also want to thank, of course, WEAA the voice of the community, for being a part of this. We like to have our fingertips on the pulse of what is happening in this city. I want to recognize Hackathon. We did not recognize them in the beginning. Hackathon has a booth outside. They've been very supportive. They have a hackathon happening on May 8th to put technology behind this city. And I want to thank our amazing moderators, Reverend Tart Yeary and Reverend Al Hathaway. Thank you so much. So folks, let's just wrap this up. And let's just keep it real. We don't feel safe. We don't feel heard. We don't feel like we're going to get what we need, not the things we want, but the things that we need in this city. We are taxpayers, we are voters, and we have had enough. This is time for us to start something new. This is time for us to make our voices count. If you are not registered, then you have no skin in the game. You don't. If you are not registered, then you obviously don't care about what's happening in this city. If you want change in Baltimore, it's got to start with you. You got to get registered. You got to show up to vote. You got to be a part of the process. Get off the sidelines and get in the game. So next time we get together, bring 2 or 3 people with you. The ones that have been complaining, been upset, bring them too. We want to hear from everybody. And join me on the radio on Monday at 3 p.m. so we can continue to have conversations that matter. We're going to go to the 5th candidate, Thuru Vignaraja. I've been working on his name because we've been going down the line. It's 1 minute, the final opportunity that you have to hear from these 14 candidates. So let's make it count. Mr. Vignaraja, you think it's Yolanda Pulley?
Yeah, Miss Pulley.
Ms. Pulley, it's on you.
What's this closing thing?
Let's do it. Wait a minute, it's not Ms. Pulley. Whoever didn't answer first, the last question is the
I
person
just answered
who
the question first.
Yeah, it's her.
Then you got to start. All right. Thank you, Ms. Pulley.
I don't know.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Mr. Vignaraja, for the last question, no, we want to be fair. Every question has gone to another person down the line. So I'm going to the moderators. Who answered the last question, Reverend Yeary?
The answer to the last question was Thuru Vignaraja.
Okay, so then it's Yolanda Pulley who should be on the. Yolanda, it's on you, ma'am.
Well, here we go. I'm not a talker, I'm a doer. My thing is that we have to stop talking, stop meeting, and start doing. I have been fighting my whole life. My father was a Black Panther. I don't know what to do else but to fight. I had to fight for redlining. I had to fight against discrimination. I fight against a lot. My thing is, like I said, I'm not a politician, I'm a people's tician. It's time for all of us to sit in the room and be mayors. We have to stop speaking on children when they're not in the room. I will be the first mayor to create a junior mayoral junior board. Bring citizens to the table. It's time for us to rise. It's time for us to stand up and say, hey, it's okay for me to be the color I am, but it's also okay for me to see things in a different way and to support everybody. I'm not a person who fight for black rights, white rights, wrong rights. I fight for all human rights. So if you want someone that's going to look out for everybody, and like I said, vote the people's tician. I don't have a political platform, a statement, and none of that. I'm just Yolanda. I gotta use the bathroom. Drink too much water.
They took the mic. First of all, I'm Mayor Jack Young. I am your mayor. And I know that we are experiencing trying times in our city, but I remain hopeful about moving this city forward. I might not be the most polished speaker here today, but if you want someone who can sweet talk you, I am not that person, don't want to be that person. But if you want honesty, transparency, and a mayor who always put people first, then I have provided honest government and quality constituent service my entire career. Because of this, my campaign has the strongest grassroots support of any candidate. Real change takes place with the people. My message is simple. I will reduce crime in the city of Baltimore. I will clean our streets and give our children and grandchildren a safe place to learn and play. I am your mayor, Jack Young. I want your vote. I'm asking for your vote. I need your vote for 2020. Thank you.
All right, thanks everybody for coming. I think a lot of people think, there are only going to be like 4 or 5 folks that really have a chance in this election. But I'm not in this just to be in it. I'm in it to win. I'm in it to represent people and the future of the city. So if you want to see a community that actually has a grocery store in it, that actually invests in these communities, that actually deals with the root causes of crime and poverty, then you lift up the people that are going to represent that. So think of 4,000 new jobs in the city just because we've decided to start handling trash differently. Think of actually putting money in these communities so that way people have access to mental health, that rec centers are open longer, that small businesses are being run by the people in the community, and having affordable housing for everyone in this city. That's the type of stuff that I represent. And so I'm not in it just to be in it. Like I said, I'm in it to represent the people, to make sure that you have a voice in where the money goes in this city's budget, and that we actually invest in the community and not just a $2 billion boondoggle that the police department has been for the last several years. Thank you.
Baltimore, am I on now? Baltimore, they asked me, why am I running? Brandon, why can't you wait? And I say, I can't wait because Baltimore can't wait. Baltimore can't have 4 more years of no vision. Baltimore can't take 4 more years of the status quo. That's what Baltimore can't. And I can't wait because this is not just numbers. Those people dying are family members that should be with their families. They're young people that should be realizing their potential. There are families that are broken and going through trauma. We have a city government structure that is broken. That's why I can't wait. I have to do this now because together we can build a better Baltimore city. Together we can have a functional city government that's void of corruption. Together we can cure gun violence once and for all in Baltimore City. Together we can ensure to make sure that equity is the rule of the land. Together we will make sure that our education system gets the investment we need. That's what I'm asking you for today. To believe in someone that believes in Baltimore and has never given up on it. To come together with us so that we can provide a new way forward for Baltimore, one where all of us together will rise to see Baltimore be the best Baltimore we can be. Thank you.
Baltimore is an amazing city, but right now, we're in shock trauma. And we need a surgeon who can get in there, get things straight, reduce the crime, fix our schools, clean up our city, reduce our taxes, fix the water bills, and work with all of our partners in this city, around this city, who are part of the solution to making our city great. But also, why I've gotten back into this race is because I know what it takes to work in city government and move it forward. But I want to work with some young people who understand that if they learn how city government works, I want to pass that baton, not put something in place and because it was Mayor Dixon, then put it in the shelf, but build on that success. So that's why I'm in this race, because I love the people of this city. I'm committed to Baltimore and the people who live here in the Baltimore city.
First of all, I just want to thank Urban League for giving us this opportunity. It's actually been an honor. I want to thank Morgan for hosting us and having us here. I'm not much of an eloquent speaker. I'm a doer. I work in the trenches, and I just see that right now we need somebody in this city that's not just going to say that they're going to bring changes, but make changes. You can't change something that you've never experienced. And I can tell you, I grew up in Reservoir Hill, and I've seen this city. I can remember when the city flourished. When most of you who are sitting here, and I know you can agree with me, at Christmas time, this city was lit up all over Baltimore City. But people have lost hope. They've lost trust. And that's one thing that I want to bring back to this city. We've talked about everything but our seniors, and I just want you to know our seniors, they need as much attention as anyone else. So I thank you once again. God bless you. You have a good day. Bye.
You've heard a lot here today about the problems in the city and some of the solutions in the city, but I'm going to say this. It is very nice to sit here and hear sound bites and platitudes, some of which isn't even legal to do. We've had enough of that in Baltimore. We need leadership that understands some very key factors. One, crime is off the chart, and there are a few ways to fix that. One, education that no longer relies on the statistical fact that children that are not performing to proficiency at 8th grade are the determining factor for the next round of prison cells. That fact is no longer relevant because we are educating our children. We need job creation, but we need economic development that brings job creation without gentrification. We need leadership that understands that. And lastly, we can no longer allow those that claim leadership in either some form of fashion, past or present, to have the best solutions when if they could, then they would. It is time for a change. Baltimore cannot wait another 4 years to clean house. Thank you.
Most of these people on this stage are people that I admire, I love, and I respect, and I call them friends. And growing up, my grandfather always told me, he said, focus on people's intentions. And through my life, I always try to be objective and decide what to do and what not to do. And my 7-year-old son told me, if you love something, you fight for it. And I was on my way out of Baltimore at the height of my career. I was very successful in marketing. And I seen the direction Baltimore was going. I turned around and said, I'm going to fight for my city. And that's why I'm on the stage today. I'm not a politician. I'm someone who has been fighting for Baltimore for the last 10 years, on the ground in every community across Baltimore, every single day, every single night, doing as much as I can with my own resources and not making any excuses. So what you're getting me is a real, genuine individual who loves Baltimore. And again, I respect every candidate on this stage. But you cannot fix something or nothing unless you know how it works. And I'm committed to saying that the things I see in Baltimore today, I know how it works, and I will do my best to fix it.
Hey man, once again, my name is Dr. Fred Ware Newsome. One thing we did recently is that we looked at the crime problem, several of the candidates and myself, and I asked a question. I said, can we come together on a bipartisanship outline and help try to find a way to fix Baltimore's crime problem? Several of them agreed to come together. Now, you may have not known nothing about that because I told them the media wasn't invited. I'm not interested in camera ops. I've been on TV a lot. I've been on radio a lot. That doesn't interest me. I need to find out what outline we could put together, and several of us met on a bipartisanship where we came together as one. Because this is one Baltimore. Like I said, I'm not part of all the rhetoric. I don't care about all the talk. Doesn't mean a thing to me. I'm results driven. If you're not producing any results, I have no interest in what you're doing. The bottom line is, if we're going to move this city forward, I don't need to hear, thank you again, I don't need to hear any, well, we're going to do this in the future, and we're going to do this 5 years from now. That's of no interest. What are we going to do right now? That's what's the deciding factor, which affects your life, my life, and Baltimore's life.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity to share with you why I want to be your mayor. Please, over the next few weeks, stop by our website. In the next they're going to be talking about our public safety plan and focus groups across the city. And I'm going to lead as I always have. I love this city. I believe in the community. I believe in doing the work. I believe and have fought for those who have not been at the table, whether it's unaccompanied homeless youth, whether it's our seniors, whether it's people who have lost their homes for water bills. We need a leader that can lead with integrity, and we need to not have false promises. I'm running because right now there are too many people making promises that they're not keeping, and unfortunately, it is making our communities not all that it can be. We are a great people. There are great people here. Our future is in our hands. We need leaders that you can trust, that have experience. It's hard work being a leader in a city. It's hard work living in a city that is downturned. We can do this better. We can work together. I'm Mary Washington, and I'm asking for your vote to be your mayor.
Well, thank you all for being here and being part of the process, and thank you to all of the people who stepped up to be a part of this. These are my family. It's people that have already tried to tear us apart. They've already tried to invoke things in us, but we talk all the time. We're behind the scenes talking about what we can do best for the greater good. That's what we have to do. And one of the first things I'll do as mayor is ask every one of the 32 people, and I bet most of y'all don't know this because this didn't even come up today. There's a couple of Republicans up here. This is not just a Democrat forum. This is a forum for the mayoral candidates. It's about the diversity of ideas to move our city in the right direction. And one of the things that I'm going to do first is put forth a team of rivals, and we can take ideas from everyone. We're different people who have different philosophies, but we all care about the same thing, and that's a better Baltimore than the days we've seen. I'm not a politician. I'm just a common sense guy, a common sense leader who wants to see us go in the right direction and not use politics as an excuse. I'm TJ Smith, tjsmithforbaltimore.com. I appreciate your support. Thank y'all.
So, only twice has Baltimore had a mayor that wasn't from Baltimore. The first time was Martin O'Malley, and now we're in a consent decree 20 years later. The second was former Mayor Pugh. I say that to say that Baltimore needs a mayor that understands it, and I do, and I love it. Just like TJ and Stokey and my other friends have said, we're going to still be here doing the work that we've always been doing after this primary. But unlike them, I don't think I've mentioned that I'm not a Democrat. So if your favorite Democrat on this stage is not who was standing there on the morning of April the 29th, we still have an opportunity to work together. The commitment that I can make to you is that I don't play party politics. So be it Delegate Nick Mosby, Councilwoman Shannon Sneed, Leon Pinkett, or Marcus Dent that I inherit as council president, I'm going to work with them for you and not for the party that I ran with. That also means I'm going to Annapolis and not play games with the governor so that we can bring some resources here and stop making the news for stupid things. I love you, Baltimore. Please visit my site.
I believe it works. Can you hear me? Okay, good. So first of all, thank you for showing up today. Thank you for having this, moderators, Dr. K, and my brothers and sisters on stage. Love you guys. And it's been already said, we all know each other. We have much respect for each other. As the next mayor of Baltimore, many individuals on the stage, I would love to be part of my administration. What we need different in Baltimore, and I mean that sincerely, we already talked, we already know, but what we need in Baltimore is different. We need something different. What's been happening is not working. It's not. You need a mayor that's going to be bold, a mayor that's going to have integrity. You need a mayor that's going to do whatever it takes to make sure the job gets done. As a business owner, I would say, if we're short on police officers in Baltimore City, then damn it, give me a vest. I'll get in a patrol car with my officers, and we will patrol Baltimore together. If we got a problem in our education system, then damn it, give me a book and a pencil. I'll go in our classrooms, and I'll help teach our kids. That's the type of mayor and leadership we need in Baltimore City. You need a servant leader, and you need someone with management skills. And I qualify for both of those. If you want the job to get done, then take off the gloves, get out there, and make sure the job gets done. And that's why I'm running for mayor of Baltimore City. I'm Ricky Vaughn. I love you. God bless.
When I was 3 years old, my family crossed an ocean in search of a better life, and Baltimore gave us a chance. Today, crime is out of control, our city is in crisis, and things are getting worse, not better. But this is the city that saved my family's life, and I've devoted my life to try to earn the blessings that I have been given. If you remember only one thing about what distinguishes our campaign from everyone else, it is this. We will take not credit, but responsibility for the problems of Baltimore. There was a mayor who once said, if a pigeon dies in the park, it's my responsibility. That is not the approach of city politicians. If crime doesn't go down on my watch, blame me. If the schools don't improve, if the students aren't learning, blame me. If the water bills are wrong, if the potholes are not being fixed, if the traffic is out of control, blame me. That's not what city politicians do, it's what leaders do. And Baltimore is in desperate need of a real one. Thank you so much. My name is Thuru Vignaraja. Vote April 28th.
All right, we also want to thank President David Wilson, the president of Morgan State University. I appreciate him allowing us to be here. Give an applause, please, for President Wilson. Thank you. I want to thank Shalonda Stokes from Graybo Entertainment, who put everything together. And when you get in your car, there's one thing you have to do. You got to turn on 88.9 FM because my colleague Faraji Muhammad is going to have a post-mayoral forum follow-up. Remember, folks, Dr. King said our lives begin to end on the day that we are silent about the things that matter. We matter, Baltimore. This election matters. We need you, and we need you to register to vote. You can do that out in the lobby. Thank you for your time and your effort.